The sudden airvolve Galactic Empire had always ruled with an iron fist. Their fleets, their technologies, their control over entire systems, nothing seemed capable of challenging them. The Empire had long since secured its borders, ensuring that no one would dare cross into their most protected sectors. Yet, in the quiet of space, something unexpected was about to shatter their calm. It all began with a small blip on the Empire's sensors. At first, it was nothing more than a flicker, easily dismissed as a malfunction. The Empire's vast and sophisticated systems rarely failed, but as the flicker continued, it grew stronger. A second, then a third signal appeared, all originating from the same place, a sector deep within the Empire's most restricted zone. Captain Varys, stationed at the Empire's central communications hub, was the first to notice. His eyes narrowed as the blip on the screen transformed into something far more troubling. Report. He barked, his voice cold but steady. An officer at the console quickly ran through the readings. Sir, we've got a vessel. It's human. Captain Varys repeated, his voice tinged with disbelief. Impossible. There's no way a human warship could breach this sector. The officer hesitated, clearly uneasy. It's not just a breach, sir. The ship is entering our core sector. It's coming directly toward the Imperial fortress. A cold shiver ran down Captain Varys' spine. The human fleets were nothing compared to the power of the Empire. How could they have come so close? Why would they even dare to enter such a heavily guarded area? Activate fleet security protocols, Varys ordered. He couldn't afford to underestimate this. If humans had somehow managed to get this far, then something was seriously wrong. Meanwhile, at the heart of the Empire's command center, word of the mysterious ship's arrival spread quickly. The highest-ranking officials scrambled to assess the situation, but no one had an explanation. How had the human ship slipped past their outer defenses? How had it avoided the countless scanners and advanced detection systems? The answers were nowhere to be found. Send a signal to the warship, General Iran commanded, trying to sound calm, though his mind raced. Tell them they are entering a restricted sector. Demand their identification and purpose. If they don't comply, we will open fire. A tense silence filled the room. The decision had been made. A human vessel, no matter how advanced, would not be allowed to enter the Empire's inner sanctum without consequences. The signal was sent. Its message clear: you have entered Imperial space. Immediately turn back or face destruction. The response came moments later. It was brief. Almost too brief. We are humans. Prepare for the consequences. The transmission cut off, leaving the room in stunned silence. General Iran stood still, his hands clenched at his sides. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. The audacity of it. A human ship, one small vessel daring to challenge the mighty Empire. What was this? A fool's errand, a suicide mission. Launch the interceptors, General Iran ordered. Activate every defense system we have. Prepare the main fleet for combat. Captain Varys, still monitoring the situation from the communications hub, had already detected the ship's next move. It was no longer drifting or moving aimlessly. The human warship had powered up its engines and was heading directly toward their flagship, the Indomitable, the pride of the Imperial fleet. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a simple misunderstanding. The humans were making a statement. The enemy ship is approaching fast, the officer at the console said, his voice strained with tension. They are ignoring all hails and warnings. Increase the signal strength, Varys snapped, his thoughts racing. Prepare the fleet. I want all interceptors in the air now. The seconds stretched into what felt like hours. The atmosphere around the command center grew heavier with each passing moment. The feeling of unease was palpable. If the humans were as reckless as they appeared, the consequences would be catastrophic. Outside, in the dark expanse of space, the Stellar Fury, the human warship, continued its approach, undeterred by the fleet massing against it. The ship was sleek, built for speed and precision, unlike the bulky Imperial warships. Its hull gleamed in the fading light of the distant stars, and despite its smaller size, it carried a silent threat in the way it cut through space with calculated ease. Inside the Stellar Fury, the crew of humans, many of them veterans of past battles, had been through countless campaigns. Their eyes were fixed on their mission, the tension between them growing thicker by the second. They knew the Empire wouldn't take this lightly. They knew they were heading into the jaws of the beast. Commander Saren, leading the ship's crew, looked out the viewport, his gaze unwavering. The looming mass of the Empire's flagship Indomitable was now clearly visible, its sheer size overwhelming. Stay calm, Commander Saren said, his voice steady, though the weight of their situation pressed on his chest. We knew what we were getting into. Focus. Remember the mission. There was a brief pause before Lieutenant Cora spoke, her voice almost too quiet. We've been preparing for this day, Commander. The Empire has underestimated humanity for far too long. Saren's eyes softened slightly. They will know our strength, Lieutenant. This is not just about taking territory. This is about making them understand that humanity is no longer to be ignored. The crew exchanged determined glances, their trust in their leader unwavering. They had come this far, and there was no turning back now. Back on the Empire's flagship, General Oran was at the helm, his hand resting firmly on the command console as the ship's massive guns powered up. The situation had escalated far beyond what he had ever expected. The enemy ship was small, but it was undeterred, relentless, and now, for the first time in years, the Empire was facing something it couldn't easily crush. Ready the weapons, Oran barked, his voice sharp. We will not let them desecrate our space. The stellar fury was closing in. Its weapons powered and primed, the Empire was ready to make its move, but the humans, they were ready to. Empire's responsive tension was palpable as both sides prepared for the inevitable clash. The stellar fury, despite being smaller and more agile, had a calm, deadly determination about it. The ship moved smoothly through the void, its sleek metallic exterior glinting in the sunlight as it advanced toward the heart of the Empire's power behind it. The full might of the Galactic Empire's fleet loomed massive, powerful, and well-equipped for any confrontation, yet, even with all their might, the Empire couldn't shake the sense of unease that was now spreading like wildfire. Through its ranks, Admiral Zara, standing at the command center of the Indomitable, surveyed the human vessel on her display screen. The massive, imposing flagship of the Empire was a sight to behold. Its cannons alone could obliterate fleets, but it was far from invulnerable. The stellar fury was entering the heart of Imperial territory, a place where no human ship had ever dared to venture. The stakes were high. If this ship got through, it would mark the first successful breach of Imperial space by humans in centuries. Admiral, the stellar fury is maintaining its course, reported Commander Lyra, her voice unwavering. They are not responding to our hails. Our fleet is ready for combat. Zara nodded, her hands resting lightly on the console. She had seen plenty of challenges during her long career, but this was different. A human warship in this sector, unbelievable. The Empire's reputation as an unbeatable force had been built on decades of supremacy, and now this ship was daring to invade the very heart of their power. But the humans weren't just reckless. They were showing discipline, precision, traits the Empire had underestimated for far too long. Prepare the fleet, Admiral Zara commanded. This is no longer a matter of diplomacy. This is an invasion. Deploy interceptors and launch the heavy artillery. The Empire's warships, larger than any known human craft, began to power up, their weapons systems engaging with terrifying speed. A fleet of interceptors was dispatched immediately, darting toward the stellar fury like deadly swarms of predatory insects. Each interceptor was designed for speed and agility, built to eliminate anything that stood in the way of the Empire's ultimate dominance. The stellar fury wouldn't stand a chance. But Commander Saren aboard the stellar fury had anticipated this response. He had studied the Empire's tactics, their methods, their movements. He knew how they would react. And he had a plan. Lieutenant Cora, prepare to engage cloaking shields. Activate the stealth drones, Saren ordered, his voice calm but full of authority. We can't afford to waste time. Keep the speed up. We need to stay one step ahead of them. Cora's fingers moved swiftly over the console, activating the ship's advanced cloaking systems. A low hum filled the bridge as the stellar fury shimmered, its form blurring as it disappeared from the enemy's radar. The ship's stealth drones, invisible to most sensors, deployed into the surrounding space, positioning themselves to create a web of interference. The interceptors on the Indomitable's radar screens immediately lost their lock on the stellar fury. Panic rippled through the Empire's fleet. What's going on? Zara demanded, her eyes fixed on the flickering readout. Why can't we track them? The ensign at the radar station struggled to find an answer. It's gone, Admiral. The ship's vanished from our sensors. It's as if it's not even. Their General Oran's face twisted in disbelief. Impossible. No human technology could be advanced enough to. But Zara held up a hand, silencing him. She had already considered that possibility. Humanity has always surprised us. They've had time to improve their technology, and we've underestimated them. Her mind raced as she looked at the empty space where the stellar fury had been. The situation was slipping beyond her control, and she had no idea what the humans were planning. We must take action now, Admiral Zara said with cold resolve. Activate the planetary shields, bring in reinforcements. We're not just dealing with a lone warship anymore. We're dealing with something that could shatter the Empire's dominance. As the fleet scrambled to regroup and launch countermeasures, Saren smiled grimly on the stellar fury's bridge. The cloak had worked. The Empire was blind. And it wouldn't take much longer before they realized just how outmatched they were. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for a long time. We've got them right where we want them, Saren said, his gaze locked on the vast expanse of space before them. The Empire's panic would only grow from here, but the Empire wasn't done yet. As the Stellar Fury reappeared from its cloak, a massive barrage of missiles rocketed toward it. The Empire had adjusted quickly, launching a direct attack with everything they had. The space around the Stellar Fury lit up with explosions as the warship maneuvered deftly. To avoid the incoming fire, steady, everyone, Saren commanded. His voice calm despite the chaos unfolding. Engage countermeasures, we've trained for this. The Stellar Fury's advanced thrusters roared to life as the ship danced around the missile fire, narrowly evading the attacks. Every inch of space felt like a battleground, and every move could be the difference between life and death. The human warship was faster, more nimble, but the Empire's firepower was overwhelming. As the two forces collided, the first round of battles had begun. The Empire's mighty fleet, with all its size and power, now faced the ingenuity and precision of humanity's finest. The Stellar Fury was more than just a warship, it was a symbol, a beacon for humanity's growing strength. And this was just the beginning. The Empire would soon learn that underestimating humanity would be their greatest mistake. The human strategized battle in space intensified as the Stellar Fury continued to dodge the Empire's relentless onslaught. Despite the overwhelming firepower of the Empire's fleet, the human ship remained surprisingly agile, its movements quick and calculated. Commander Saren watched the unfolding chaos from the bridge, his eyes scanning the tactical displays with sharp focus. He knew this was just the beginning. The Empire's initial attack was meant to intimidate, but humanity had a different strategy in mind. We're not here to simply survive, Saren said, his voice cutting through the tense silence of the bridge. We're here to make a statement. Lieutenant Cora, seated beside him, quickly tapped commands into her console, bringing up a series of maps and data feeds. They're closing in fast, Commander. Their interceptors are relentless, but we're outmaneuvering them. Saren nodded, his hand firmly gripping the control arm of his chair. He had been expecting this type of fight. The Empire would rely on its brute strength, overwhelming numbers, and sheer firepower. But humanity had been waiting for the perfect moment to show that they were more than just survivors. They were innovators, thinkers, and warriors capable of outsmarting their enemies. This battle wasn't just about the strength of their ships. It was about understanding their adversary and using their weaknesses to gain the upper hand. The Stellar Fury's cloaking shields had been activated once again, allowing it to disappear from the Empire's sensors just as a second wave of interceptors closed in. This was a tactic the Empire wasn't prepared for. Humanity had designed technology that allowed them to evade even the most advanced scanning systems. The human ship had become a ghost in the vast sea of space, its movements invisible and unpredictable. Activate Phase 2, Saren ordered. Prepare the drones. Let's put the fear of humanity into them. Cora nodded and quickly tapped the sequence into the console. In an instant, dozens of sleek, unarmed stealth drones were released from the Stellar Fury. These drones, designed to be nearly invisible to enemy sensors, scattered into the vast expanse of space. They were equipped with small, high-powered electromagnetic pulses designed to jam the Empire's communications, further disrupting their coordination. As the drones dispersed, they sent waves of interference into the Empire's fleet, scrambling their systems and creating confusion. For the first time, the Empire's once perfectly coordinated strikes were thrown into chaos. Ships began losing their locks on the Stellar Fury, and the Empire's interceptors collided in midair, their targeting systems blinded by the electromagnetic pulse. It was a small, seemingly insignificant maneuver, but it was a tactic designed to shake the Empire's confidence. They're losing control, Cora muttered under her breath. Their fleet is falling apart. Saren's lips twitched into a small smile. Exactly. This is just the start. We've been preparing for this. The Empire may have power, but they don't have the strategic flexibility to handle guerrilla tactics like these. Meanwhile, across the Empire's command ships, panic was beginning to spread. General Iran, who had once believed that the Stellar Fury was just a minor nuisance, now saw the reality of the situation. His flagship, the Indomitable, had been throwing everything it had at the human vessel, yet it was still evading every attack with ease. The jamming interference from the drones was making it impossible to properly track the Stellar Fury, and his fleet was descending into disarray. Admiral Zara, we've lost all visual on the enemy's ship, Iran reported, frustration lacing his words. Their cloak and electronic countermeasures are too advanced. We can't get a lock on them. Zara clenched her fists at the tactical display, frustration building in her chest. The human warship was using advanced technology, tactics, and strategies that they had never anticipated. This was no longer a simple breach of Imperial space. This was a challenge to their dominance. It was a reminder that the galaxy was changing, And the Empire was no longer the unchallenged force it once was. "We need to adapt," Zara said. Her voice steady but strained. "Start deploying anti-stealth systems. We'll need to focus on their last known location and wait for them to resurface." But Saren wasn't giving them the chance. The human warship had already begun Phase 3 of their plan, initiate the pulse barrage. Saren ordered with unwavering confidence. The Stellar Fury powered up its main cannons. Unlike the Empire's massive weaponry, which focused on sheer force, the human ship's cannons were designed for precision and efficiency. The energy blasts were carefully calculated, targeting weak points in the Empire's fleet with devastating accuracy. The first barrage struck the flagship Indomitable, sending powerful shockwaves through its outer hull. The blasts weren't designed to destroy the ship immediately. They were meant to destabilize its defenses and weaken its resolve. On the Indomitable, the crew scrambled to assess the damage. The force of the pulse barrage had caused several power systems to flicker and the ship's shields began to fail. "Direct hit to the forward shields," reported one of the ensigns. "We've lost half of our energy reserves." General Oron's face went pale. This was no longer a standard battle, it was a calculated attack, one designed to erode the Empire's confidence bit by bit. The Empire was being tested in ways it had never been tested before. "They're systematically breaking us down," Oron muttered, his voice low. "The humans are making us look weak, and that was the point." Saren knew exactly what he was doing. Each move, each calculated strike, was designed to strip away the Empire's sense of invincibility, to force them to confront the reality that they were no longer the uncontested rulers of the galaxy. "You can't fight what you don't understand," Saren said, his voice steady with purpose. "This is just the beginning. Let's show them what humanity is truly capable of." As the Stellar Fury reappeared from its cloaking shield, ready to strike again, the Empire was left struggling to keep up. For the first time in centuries, the Empire's might was being questioned, and humanity's power, once underestimated, was now impossible to ignore. The battle was far from over, but the tides had already begun to turn. The Empire was not prepared for this kind of fight, but humanity? Humanity had been preparing for this moment for generations. Empire's collapseth battle was no longer a contest of raw power, it had become a war of attrition, a battle of wits between the Empire's might and humanity's ingenuity. The Stellar Fury, though outnumbered and smaller, was proving itself to be a thorn in the Empire's side. The Empire's fleet, once the pinnacle of military strength, now found itself struggling to adapt to the unexpected tactics of the human ship. Each move the Stellar Fury made seemed to take the Empire by surprise, further eroding their control. Admiral Zara stood in the heart of the command center, her gaze fixed on the tactical display, the flickering images of the battle unfolding before her. The sight of her fleet in disarray was unbearable. The Indomitable, the flagship of the Empire, had been struck multiple times by the pulse barrage from the Stellar Fury. Its shields were weakening, and the once pristine surface was now marred with burn marks and structural damage. "Admiral, we've lost communication with several of the fleet's warships," reported Commander Lyra, her voice grim. "The Stellar Fury's electromagnetic pulses are interfering with everything. Our navigational systems are down, and we can't track the human ship accurately." Zara clenched her fists, her mind racing. This wasn't just a battle, it was a humiliation. The Stellar Fury was systematically dismantling her fleet. The human warship had already demonstrated its advanced technology, but what had shocked the Empire most was the sheer audacity of humanity. The Stellar Fury wasn't just fighting to survive, it was fighting to win, to show the Empire that humanity was no longer a force to be ignored. "They've crippled half of our fleet's tactical capabilities," Zara said, her voice strained but cold with resolve. "We cannot afford to let this continue. We need to strike back now, or this will spiral out of control." Oron, standing beside her, exchanged a glance with the Admiral. "With all due respect, Admiral, I don't think we can handle much more. The human ship's evasive maneuvers are too unpredictable. They've already broken through our front lines." Zara's jaw tightened. She had underestimated the humans, and now it was too late to turn back. The Empire's reputation for invincibility was shattering before her eyes, and every minute that passed made their situation worse. On the Stellar Fury, Commander Saren observed the unfolding chaos from the bridge. He could feel the momentum shifting in their favor. Each pulse from their ship, each calculated move, was creating cracks in the Empire's defenses. It was working. The Empire's once unshakable confidence was fading. But Saren knew this wasn't the end. The Empire was powerful, and if given time to regroup, they could still fight back. He needed to strike decisively. Before that happened, "Lieutenant Cora, prepare the final phase," Saren said, his voice calm but filled with determination. "It's time to hit them where it hurts." Cora looked up from her console, her face showing both concern and understanding. "You're planning the breach, Commander." "Exactly," Saren replied. "We've softened them up. Now we go for the heart. It's time to bring down the Empire." The plan was simple yet audacious. The Stellar Fury would deploy its remaining drones armed with explosive payloads and send them directly into the heart of the Empire's command fleet. The Empire's centralized power, its flagship and its elite warships, would be crippled in one fell swoop. "Deploy the drones," Saren ordered, his eyes never leaving the screen. "Make sure they reach the flagship. The rest of the fleet is already in disarray. Now's our chance." Across the battlefield, a new wave of drones, sleek, deadly, and nearly invisible, emerged from the Stellar Fury. These drones weren't just for jamming communications. They were designed for one purpose: destruction. They zipped through the empty expanse of space, guided by the precision of human ingenuity, heading straight for the core of the Imperial fleet. At the heart of the Empire's flagship, Admiral Zara's gaze remained fixed on the tactical display, still calculating their next move. But then, without warning, the first wave of drones detonated, sending shockwaves through the fleet. Explosions rippled through the Empire's central command structure. The Indomitable trembled as multiple hits struck its outer defenses, crippling its power systems and sending a wave of panic through the crew. "Direct hit to the central reactor," reported one of the officers, his voice shaking. "We've lost power to all secondary systems. Shields are down." The Admiral's mind raced. She couldn't let this happen. The Indomitable had to remain operational. If it fell, so would the Empire's entire fleet. "Activate emergency protocols, reinforce the reactor core," Zara ordered. But the damage was already done. The Empire's fleet had been scattered, its communications severed, and its flagship severely damaged. Back on the Stellar Fury, Saren's face was stone cold as he watched the results unfold. The first wave had hit its target perfectly, but it wasn't enough to end the fight. The Empire's remaining forces were regrouping, but they were slow, disorganized. This wasn't a battle anymore. This was a collapse. "Prepare for the final strike," Saren ordered. The Stellar Fury's cannons powered up again, and this time, the target was clear: the heart of the Empire's defense. As the human warship's weapons fired one final, decisive shot, the Indomitable lurched violently, a massive explosion tearing through its central command. The flagship of the Empire, once the symbol of its unmatched might, crumpled before the full force of humanity's strike. The rest of the Empire's fleet, now leaderless and in disarray, began to retreat. The Stellar Fury had done what no one thought possible. It had brought the Empire to its knees. On the bridge of the Stellar Fury, Saren allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. The Empire had been dealt a blow that would echo across the galaxy for centuries to come. Humanity had shown the Empire that it was no longer just a bystander in the galaxy. It was a force to be reckoned with, but Saren knew the war wasn't over. This was only the beginning. The Stellar Fury's victory was a message to the galaxy: humanity would not be intimidated. They would fight, and they would win. The Empire had underestimated them, and now they had to deal with the consequences. As the debris from the Indomitable drifted away into the void, the crew of the Stellar Fury prepared for the next phase. The galaxy was shifting, and humanity was at the center of it. The fight had just begun, and nothing would stop them now. A new dawn. Space surrounding the wreckage of the Indomitable was eerily quiet. The once mighty flagship of the Galactic Empire now floated in pieces, its shattered hull drifting aimlessly in the cold void. For the first time in history, the Empire's vaunted fleet had been bested by a single human warship, a ship that had outmaneuvered their most advanced defenses and left them scrambling to regroup. Inside the Stellar Fury, Commander Saren stood at the bridge, his expression unreadable, as he observed the aftermath. The crew had done their job. The Empire had been dealt a blow that would reverberate across the galaxy. But Saren wasn't celebrating. This wasn't a victory to be savored. It was only the beginning of a much larger war. Humanity had shown what it could do, but the fight was far from over. "Commander," Lieutenant Cora said, her voice breaking the silence, "the Empire is retreating. Their remaining ships are pulling back from our position. They're in disarray." Saren nodded, his mind already moving ahead. "We've taken down their flagship, but this battle is only a small part of a much bigger picture. The Empire is wounded but not defeated. We need to take control of their communications and broadcast this message across the galaxy. Let everyone know that humanity is no longer a force to be underestimated." Cora hesitated, her fingers hovering over her console. "You want us to send a message to the rest of the galaxy?" "Yes," Saren said, his voice steady. "We need the galaxy to hear us. The Empire will need time to recover, but now's the time to strike. We need to make sure they never feel safe in their power again." With that, Cora began tapping commands into her console. Within moments, the Stellar Fury's communication systems had been hijacked. A direct feed was sent to every corner of the galaxy, overriding the Empire's networks. Saren took a deep breath, preparing to address the galaxy. The bridge crew stood silently, watching him as he spoke into the mic. "This is Commander Saren of the Stellar Fury. The Galactic Empire has long ruled the galaxy with fear, control, and oppression. For centuries, they have believed that their strength was unmatched, that no one could challenge their dominance. Today, humanity proves otherwise. The Stellar Fury stands as a symbol of what humanity is capable of: strength, resilience, and the unwavering will to fight for freedom. The Empire will no longer control the galaxy with its iron fist. This is our galaxy now. We are here to reclaim it." His words echoed across the communication channels, carrying a weight that would be felt throughout the galaxy. The message was clear: humanity was no longer a bystander in galactic affairs. They had shown the Empire that their might was no longer unchallenged. On the bridge, Cora watched as the communication broadcast finished, a silence settling over the crew. The crew had heard the message, felt the gravity of what Saren had just done. "The first step had been taken, Commander," Lieutenant Cora said quietly. "What happens now?" Saren's gaze turned toward the viewport, where the stars stretched out before them in the vastness of space. The war wasn't over, but something had shifted. Humanity had made its presence known in a way no one ever thought possible. The Empire would have to rethink its approach to this new, powerful force. "Now," Saren said, his voice low but filled with purpose, "we wait. The galaxy will respond, and when they do, we'll be ready." The Stellar Fury set a course toward the edge of the galaxy, its crew determined and resolute. There was still much work to be done. The Empire's retreat was only temporary. Other factions, other forces would soon take their place. But humanity had proven it was a force to be reckoned with. In the far reaches of the galaxy, systems that had once cowered under the Empire's rule were beginning to stir. Word of the human victory was spreading like wildfire. Some would rally to humanity's side, while others would try to crush it. But whatever came next, humanity would face it together. On the bridge of the Stellar Fury, Saren stared out into the vast, unknown expanse of space. A new era was beginning, an era where humanity had a place at the table. No longer would they be pushed aside or ignored. The fight for the galaxy had only just begun. But Saren knew one thing for certain: humanity would never be silenced again. And the galaxy would never be the same. The human warship, once thought insignificant, had become the beacon of a new, powerful force in the galaxy, a force that would reshape the very fabric of the cosmos. The Empire had fallen, and humanity had risen to take its place.